Roar!
Sharks don't do that.
I'm Erin.
I'm Tom.
And this is Baby's First Watch List, the podcast finally covering my sister's least favorite movie of all time.
Yeah, at least the one she's the most scared of.
My sister Kaylee is Aunt Kaylee. She's terrified of sharks.
Aunt Kaylee of High School Musical episode.
Yeah. And it all started with Jaws. And she still does not do shark. She doesn't do ocean. Like, it cracks me up. So one time we went to North Carolina to the Outer Banks, and my cousin and I took like the last room, and then we made Kaylee and my cousin Chris sleep in like the living room, and we saw that they had all these DVDs out, and we just put Jaws in the front.
Oh God.
It was mean. So that's what we're covering today. It's the summer classic 1975's Jaws.
Yep, and we are in the heat of summer right now, and I am sweating.
It's been a sweaty couple weeks.
Yep.
This thriller, directed by Steven Spielberg,
You would call it a thriller?
Yeah,
As opposed to horror?
I was thrilled.
As opposed to horror?
Yeah, it's thrilling.
Okay.
I don't think it's like horror-y, to be honest with you. It was Steven Spielberg's second film, and he was only like 26 or something when he started with it.
Sugarland Express was his first one, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. And then he had a Duel, which was a TV movie.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, this was his second feature film.
Right.
And it was adapted from the 1974 novel of the same name by Peter Benchley. The screenplay was by Benchley, who, by the way, had a house in Pennington, New Jersey.
Oh, really?
Which we know.
Yeah.
And Carl Gottlieb, who was, he did like some comedy stuff.
He was brought in to add levity to the script.
That's right.
Yeah.
So the cinematographer, Bill Butler, he had a few heaters. He also shot The Conversation,
Okay.
which is a
Coppola.
Coppola. Some Rocky sequels.
We got to watch the Conversation.
Yeah, we do.
I think it's supposed to be good.
He shot some Rocky sequels, which
Okay.
is always a plus on a resume.
Yeah, baby.
And
was it 4?
I think the Rocky sequels. I think he filmed
all of them.
I think he was like, I just do Rocky.
Yeah, I'm the Rocky guy now.
I don't know if that's true.
Okay, I'll look it up.
And he also finished the cinematography for One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
Okay.
Apparently there were some issues.
Haskell Wexler was fired.
Yeah. And so this guy, Butler, actually got an Oscar nomination for Cuckoo's Nest, which is kind of funny.
Butler did Rocky 2, 3, and 4.
There you go. I mean, can you beat that? I mean, Rocky won.
No, you can't beat that.
So he died just a few months ago.
Oh, really?
He was 102.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. Editor Verna Fields. She worked with Spielberg and George Lucas during their like early careers.
I have some trivia about her.
Jaws was her last editing job, and then she became
really?
like a crazy like executive person at Universal Studios, not the theme park.
Yeah.
Like Universal Studios.
Like the people who funded Jaws.
Everyone was like, "Oh, Verna gets stuff done. Like she's
Yeah.
the person you work with." So, okay, I'm excited to hear about her trivia later.
It's related to the movie.
When I tell you this Wikipedia page for Jaws,
Insane.
I couldn't do all. It's very in depth.
Yeah,
And it's interesting.
There's so much trivia on this movie. It's wild.
It's crazy.
I'll get to it later.
So anything that we say, there's 5 billion things.
We
more
missed
than
stuff.
That. So much stuff. So the music, was by John Williams.
John Dub.
So he has 5 Oscars. He has 53 nominations, only behind who?
Nominations?
Yeah.
Morricone?
No.
Newman?
No.
Who?
Walt Disney.
Oh, in general. I thought you meant for score.
Walt Disney has 59.
Yeah.
He's the only person, John Williams, to be nominated in 7 different decades.
Wow. Oh, yeah, because for The Fabelmans, right?
Yeah.
Wasn't he? Yeah.
Yep. So good job, John Williams. This movie, Jaws, was shot mostly on location at Martha's Vineyard. Did you think Martha's Vineyard was owned by Martha Stewart?
No.
I always thought that growing up.
The only thing I remember was it was where RFK was when he died.
Yeah.
They were like off the coast of. Wait, were they there?
Not RFK, JFK Jr.
JFK Jr.
Yeah.
Right. RFK was long before I was born.
Yes.
Yeah, JFK Jr.
Were they
They either were at
Vineyard?
Martha's Vineyard or they put their ashes at Martha's Vineyard.
Okay.
It was like one of those two things was
Very sad story.
Yeah.
So Also sad, Jaws had a lot of issues during production.
Very
In
sad.
fact, they called it flaws when it was
Yes,
like
yes, yes.
filming, which is funny. Um, it was the first movie they say to be filmed on the ocean, which I don't know, like the first, like okay.
Maybe on
But that's
location
what they say.
because a lot of it was like just in a studio, like at a studio, and they
Yeah,
would build a set.
yeah. So they said it was the first one to be filmed on the ocean, and so obviously that's gonna cause some problems.
Yeah, I my trivia is mostly what Mark told me.
Yeah.
And he mentions how the salt water was messing with stuff.
It like stuff was getting drenched that didn't need to be
Yeah.
drenched. Things were like sinking.
Yeah.
And then one of the big problems was getting the shark to work. I saw that at first they wanted to train a great white shark.
Yes.
And then they quickly realized that was not going to be an option.
They did do a scene with the real great white shark.
I think I know exactly what that scene was 'cause I was like, that looks like a real
The
shark.
Hooper scene
Yeah.
at the end, yeah.
Yeah. And so obviously having issues getting the shark to work, Spielberg kind of took a more Hitchcockian approach of having the shark not be seen very much. So a lot of it is filled in with your imagination. You have that kind of, ooh, where is he? Oh my God, what's going to happen kind of thing. And he said it's less of one of those like old school Japanese horror movies where the villain is everywhere and like
Yeah.
it's scary and like some Godzilla and stuff, and more like a Hitchcock movie where it's less of an obvious horror.
Well, this is kind of what I am talking about when I say that older directors, because they had fewer options and fewer like access to technology, they had to come up with ideas like this. And a lot of the times when you're a great one like this, or like some of the people that I've talked about in the past, like Kurosawa, like you're gonna come up with something that is gonna push the art form forward, which is kind
Exactly
of what this is doing.
It did.
And Hitchcock, the same, like obviously Hitchcock did it first, so it's like the same type of idea.
Mm-hmm. So I wrote this because this was kind of funny. So it started filming. They really tried to get it started filming in May 1974 in order to avoid problems with a possible SAG strike, because the SAG Screen Actors Guild was about to have a contract expire.
And that's exactly what's happening as we speak.
And not to mention, they were also worried about a Writers Guild strike. So they really wanted to work with Benchley, the guy who wrote the novel, because
he wasn't union.
He was non-union.
Because he's a novel writer.
Yes. So we're dealing with two strikes at once right now.
Yeah.
Writers Guild and Screen Actors Guild. SAG-AFTRA. AFTRA. Ad Astra is what I was thinking
Ad
of.
Astra, yes.
And so I
wish they went on strike instead of making that movie.
So I found it interesting that they were kind of
Similar
navigating
situation.
that here. Yeah.
Almost 50 years later.
Crazy. So there's a ton about the adapting of the book.
Yeah.
Like Spielberg said that he really wanted only the last third.
He was more interested in like the Moby Dick part of it.
Yeah, and so he was like, we're gonna like change a lot of the first 2/3 of the book.
There was also, did you read about the subplots?
Yeah, like there was an affair between
Hooper and the wife.
Yeah.
And the mafia was behind the mayor.
I just don't need it.
And that's why the mayor was trying to keep the beaches open.
Which you don't need to know.
No,
that.
the mayor can just say, we're making money off this. This is the only time we make money all year.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But for a novel, I understand that
for sure.
It's going to be more in depth.
You got to fill in more time and all that. Yeah.
Yeah. So Spielberg really wanted to focus on that last third on the ocean and kind of make it a more streamlined story. Carl Gottlieb was supposed to add some humor to the script, but eventually he became the main screenwriter. Spielberg was not super happy with the original script by Benchley and all of his drafts.
Benchley said he wrote it a bunch of times and was just like, I'm done. Like, I can't do anymore. This is what I got. Take it or leave it.
They tried to get like a bunch of people and like it was not working or whatever. Eventually Gottlieb went in and he like was known for The Odd Couple. So like it was like, oh, he's funny. And some of the script scenes were like, it would be like they were written the night before, and then he would tell Spielberg and the actors about it at dinner.
Yeah.
And then they would have to film it the next day. Spielberg, according to him, 27 scenes were in the movie that were not in the book.
Okay.
Which is crazy. So Jaws starred Roy Scheider, Richard Dreyfuss, and Robert Shaw. I'm only keeping it to the three. Scheider was a Jersey boy. He went to Rutgers, and he was an amateur boxer in New Jersey.
Oh, dang.
So we love him. He was also known for The French Connection and All That Jazz,
They
being
were
Oscar nominated for both.
When he was cast in this movie, they were worried that he was going to be a little too much of a tough guy because he was a tough guy in French Connection.
And also a boxer, and also from New
Yeah.
Jersey.
Yeah, but that wasn't what the role called for, so he didn't do that.
So he was like, I'm cute and nice, and I'm scared of the water. Richard Dreyfuss, he's still alive. He
Yes.
won an Oscar at 30
He's
for
the
The Goodbye Girl.
The only one of the three that's still alive.
Yeah. And at the time, he was the youngest to win whatever. So he was also nominated for Mr. Holland's Opus in 1995, which I did see back in high school. We watched it in music class, which makes sense. Robert Shaw, he had a colorful life.
So I've heard.
He was a big theater guy. He had 10 kids. He was nominated for an Oscar for A Man for All Seasons back in the 60s. He had some issues during Jaws. He kept leaving set because he had tax issues.
And
yes. Then so he had to leave the country a lot.
Oh my! I didn't know that.
And then he had alcohol issues throughout his whole life.
Yeah.
In fact, his second wife died of alcohol,
poisoning or something.
Alcohol and barbiturates overdose, and he found her. It was very sad.
Yeah, I read that during the filming of Jaws, Shaw was like, Scheider was like he was either Scheider or Spielberg was like he's a great guy when he's sober, but it's like he struggled
a lot, and he also fought a lot with Richard Dreyfuss.
Yes.
On the set, it was crazy.
Dreyfuss also hated Bill Murray, I think.
Yeah.
During one of What About Bob.
Yeah, I saw What About Bob in high school too.
I saw it too.
Why did I watch all these weird movies?
I've seen that movie
a
bunch of times.
I think I watched it in health class.
Oh, I'm actually on Dreyfuss's Wikipedia right now. He has bipolar disorder.
Yeah, I knew that.
Yeah.
So yeah, Robert Shaw, interesting story. He died pretty young in his early 60s, I think, of alcoholism.
Yeah.
No, he had a heart attack.
Yeah, right.
He had a heart attack. But he had a lifelong struggle with that. And he was kind of seen as playing that sort of everyman role, having a certain thing about him. But he was English. He didn't come across as English. He came across as very Bostonian.
Yeah.
So anyway, the movie was cited as having caused. This is actually. I'll say this after. It's really interesting. But Jaws had an absolutely massive marketing budget, which ended up paying off tremendously. It was considered the first summer blockbuster. Again, this Wikipedia person's the first this, the first that.
Yeah, well, again, it was almost on accident because it was supposed to come out in December or something.
And they're oops. Oh,
yeah.
Well, I guess we'll make one of the most successful movies ever.
Yeah.
It was number 1 at the box office for 14 consecutive weeks after being released on June 20th, 1975. It was the highest grossing film of all time until Star Wars 2 years later. Overall, it made $476.5 million on a very bloated $9 million budget.
For the time, yeah.
It was supposed to be way less than that, and it just kept going up.
It was.
Spielberg was like, oops.
I think he went over double his budget.
Over double his budget, and he went over 100 days over what he was supposed to do.
It was
filming.
supposed to be 50 days, and ended up being 152 or something.
Exactly. Test audiences really, really responded well to the movie, but they noticed that there were certain things that they had to change due to the reactions from the audience. For example,
he added certain things.
He added some things. He wanted one last scream, so he changed a couple things. But one thing I found interesting, you're gonna need a bigger boat line.
Yeah.
It was drowned out at first by the screams from the previous thrill that was there, so they moved things around so it was a little bit later so you could hear it.
Yeah. And it was an ad lib apparently originally.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
So the movie is cited as having caused an incident of cinematic neurosis, which is where viewers experience mental health disturbances or where something increases an issue that is seen to be stemming from watching a movie. In this case, someone had an issue and they kept yelling sharks, sharks, sharks. And so this movie, as well as one other one released in the mid-70s, were used by the medical community for a lot of case studies.
I was going to guess Nightmare on Elm Street.
No, that's from the 80s.
Yeah.
But it is a horror movie from the mid-70s.
Halloween?
Nope, it's The Exorcist.
Oh, duh. Yeah, I knew that.
So that had people throwing up in the theaters and all that. That was crazy. So Jaws was also a critical success. It was nominated for Best Picture and it won 3 Oscars: film editing, dramatic score, which also won like a Grammy and a million other things, and Best Sound. Spielberg, though, always had an issue with not being nominated for Best Director that year.
Shut up, Spielberg.
It's even in your Oscars book.
It is,
because I did read a
Oscar
couple
Wars.
pieces of it. Yeah. So he was
because he was that book frames Spielberg as the first person who grew up being like, I want to win an Oscar.
Yeah.
Because of how it had just really.
Spoiler, he did.
Yeah.
But not for that.
Yeah.
But yeah, he was very disappointed.
Was Saving Private Ryan his first win?
I don't know actually, but what I do know, maybe Schindler's List.
Oh yeah,
Did he win for Schindler's List?
I'm sure he did.
I think he was nominated for The Color Purple.
I always forget he did Schindler's List.
Yeah, that's a good
It
movie.
doesn't feel like a Spielberg type movie, but
yeah.
Yeah.
It has since been called one of the greatest films of all time. It's like on every list ever. And it obviously was selected for preservation by the Library of Congress way back in 2001.
Yeah, so he's won twice. He won for Schindler's List and then he won for Saving Private Ryan. And he was nominated 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 other times.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah.
So there were 3 sequels to Jaws that aren't really worth mentioning, except for the fact that Jaws: The Revenge is considered one of the worst movies ever made. But how bad can it be? Michael Caine is in it.
It's true. Mario Van Peebles too. He did like New Jack City, I think.
Yeah, there you go. The movie also inspired lots of stuff: video games, regular games, all merchandise, and rides at Universal Studios on both coasts. Of course, our coast, the Florida one, is no longer, the Jaws ride is no longer there. But when we did go down, my family, Kaylee refused to go on the ride.
Naturally.
And she also refused to like really stand like under the big shark that was there.
Yeah.
I will say this. I found the Amity Town part of Universal Studios to be like my favorite.
Really?
I like when things are kind of small towny and coastal and whatever. I was like, Superland, no. Sue's-land, no. Oh, Martha's Vineyard? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
Martha's Vineyard
I love going to a
South
theme
Florida.
park that is
Or Central
supposed to
Florida.
be Martha's Vineyard.
In Central Florida.
Yeah, it's a blast. So that's all I got on Jaws. I mean,
that's it?
that's Tom. There was so much.
I know.
I
I'm just
had
saying
to
it's an
cut
insane. It's
stuff,
a
like,
crazy amount.
Truly insane.
Yeah.
So go ahead and give us our summary.
All right. It's not super long because it's not a very plot heavy movie. It's really not a very
No,
plot
it's
heavy
really
movie.
not.
Okay. In the New England beach town of Amity Island, a young woman goes for a late night ocean swim during a beach party.
Chrissy.
While treading water, an unseen force attacks and pulls her underwater. The next morning, her partial remains are found washed up on the beach. After the medical examiner concludes that it was a shark attack, newly hired police chief Martin Brody, played by Roy Scheider, closes the beaches. Mayor Larry Vaughn, I forgot the actor, something Murray Freeman or something,
My guy.
persuades him to reconsider, fearing that the town's summer economy will suffer. The coroner, apparently under pressure from Vaughn, now concurs with the mayor's theory that it was a boating accident. Brody reluctantly accepts their conclusion until soon after a young boy named Alex Kintner is killed at a crowded beach. A bounty is placed on the shark, causing an amateur shark hunting frenzy. An eccentric and weathered local shark hunter, Quint, played by Robert Shaw, offers his services for $10,000. Meanwhile, consulting oceanographer Matt Hooper, played by Richard Dreyfuss, examines the girl's remains, confirming that an abnormally large shark killed her. When local fishermen catch a tiger shark, the mayor proclaims the beaches are safe. Mrs. Kintner confronts Brody, slaps him in the face, and blames him for her son's death. A skeptical Hooper dissects the tiger shark and, finding no human remains inside a stomach filled with license plates, garbage, and anything else the shark could find, determines that it was actually a larger shark that killed the victims. While searching the night waters in Hooper's boat,
Whoa.
Hooper and Brody find a half-sunken vessel. Underwater, Hooper removes a sizable great white shark tooth from the boat's hull, but accidentally drops it after a man's disembodied head pokes out from inside the boat,
I was shooketh.
terrifying him.
I was shooketh.
Mayor Vaughn dismisses Brody and Hooper's assertions that a huge great white shark caused the deaths since Hooper dropped the tooth.
He's like, ugh, boring.
And refuses to close the beaches, allowing only increased safety precautions. They had like a helicopter, they had an extra boat, they had some stuff going on.
Which would make me be like, yo, let's go to the beach and see the helicopter.
So on the 4th of July weekend, tourists obviously packed the beaches. Following a juvenile prank with a fake shark fin, the real shark enters a nearby lagoon, killing a boater.
That was crazy.
And nearly killing Brody's son also.
Brody's son was just like, I'm scared.
Yeah,
and
just
then
standing
was like
there.
in shock.
Yeah. Brody then convinces a guilt-ridden Mayor Vaughn to immediately hire Quint to hunt the shark. Despite tension between Quint and Hooper, because they kind of have different,
Apparently in real life, too.
yeah, well, they apparently have different schools of thought. Like, Hooper was more of, like, the scientific guy. Quint's like, I've been here before.
He
I've
just
done
goes
this.
with vibes.
Yeah, he's a vibes guy. The two of them set out with Brody for some reason. Why is Brody going with them, first of all?
It's the same thing on Independence Day when it's
Yeah.
like, why is the president flying the plane?
Yeah. Like, Brody, first of all, he's afraid of water. He says, I'm afraid of water.
It's like, I'm literally terrified. And they're like, come on, it's going to be fine. We're going to catch this evil shark.
It ended up working because he's a little bit of a mediator between the two of them.
Yeah.
They all set out to hunt the shark. As Brody lays down a chum line to bait the shark suddenly appears behind the boat. Quint catches it. He sees that it's about 25 feet, weighs 3 tons, and he harpoons it with a line attached to a flotation barrel, but the shark pulls the barrel underwater and disappears. Tough luck. At nightfall, Quint and Hooper drunkenly exchange stories about their assorted bodily scars. One of Quint's is a removed tattoo, and he reveals that he survived the attack on the USS Indianapolis, which in 1945 delivered the atomic bomb to Hiroshima during World War II, and many of his crewmates drowned or were eaten by sharks.
Did this really happen?
No.
Oh, okay.
I mean, it did happen, but
I was going to be like, is this going to be an Oppenheimer?
the USS Indianapolis did sink, and it was destroyed by like a submarine or something, but the shark thing,
That wasn't real.
that didn't happen,
Okay.
no. But it led to a revival in people researching the USS Indianapolis.
Yeah, totally.
During the conversation, the shark returns unexpectedly, ramming the boat's hull and disabling the power. This this shark is like, it's like, yo, I'm gonna cut the power on these fools.
Yeah, he means business.
The men work through the night repairing the engine. In the morning, Brody attempts to call the Coast Guard, but Quint, obsessed with killing the shark without outside assistance, smashes the radio. I would have thrown Quint overboard at that point. You gotta be kidding me, dude. After a long chase, Quint harpoons the shark with another barrel. The line is tied to the stern cleats, but the shark drags the boat backward, swamping the deck with water and flooding the engine compartment. Quint prepares to sever the line to save the stern of the boat, but the cleats break off, keeping the barrels attached to the shark, and the shark's kind of gone off, and you see all the barrels in the water.
I loved this movie.
To Brody's relief, Quint heads towards shore to draw the shark into shallower waters, but the overtaxed engine fails because he's pushing it too hard. As the boat slowly sinks, the trio attempts a riskier approach. Hooper suits up, enters the water in a shark-proof cage, intending to lethally inject the shark with strychnine via a hypodermic spear. So he had a big thing. He was sticking it through the cage to try to get the shark in, like, I think he said the eyes or the inside the mouth.
Shiver me timbers.
And it's like a pesticide or something that's supposed to kill like rabbits, but apparently you're using it on shark here.
Whatever.
The shark attacks the cage and breaks it open, causing Hooper to drop the spear. While the shark thrashes in the cage's tangled remains, Hooper barely escapes down to the seabed, trying to grab the spear.
I am out.
The shark breaks free and leaps onto the boat again for some reason.
I love it.
And Quint finds its way down the shark's throat.
That was wild. Like, okay, the rest of the movie, I was like, all right, this is like not scary. This is like, ooh, creepy.
Well, it's not scary now.
Okay, the Quint part was like, oh, like that's scary and gory.
Yeah.
He got torn up.
He was like
bro.
talking and his body was like halfway in the
He
shark's
was
mouth.
tore up.
Somebody had to go though.
Yeah, which I called.
Of the three of them, yeah.
Even though I had already seen the movie, so maybe I just knew.
Trapped on the sinking vessel, Brody shoves a pressurized scuba tank into the shark's mouth and, climbing onto the crow's nest, shoots the tank with a rifle. The resulting explosion kills the shark, and the good guys win.
Yeah.
Hooper resurfaces, and he and Brody paddle back to Amity Island, clinging to the remaining barrels, and then the final shot is like of the beach and the tide coming in.
What a great movie.
Jaws.
Good job,
Film.
Tom. That was a great thing. Too bad
Straight from Wikipedia.
you didn't mention
The what? The mom?
Oh my God. So the mom is
Well,
like
Brody's wife,
Brody's wife.
who is the main character of the other Jaws movies.
Oh, she is?
Yeah.
Queen. She is possibly like we had our Mother's Day episode where we were talking about like good moms and bad moms.
She might be the dumbest mom in the
the
history
worst
of movies.
mom. She constantly is like, go off and play, kids.
Oh.
How about you go to the ocean?
Yeah, so their son, they got their son a little boat for his birthday, and this was after 1 or 2 people had been killed.
Yeah,
already.
and like the general public didn't know that, but the chief of police
Brody
did.
knew. Yeah.
He knew.
Yeah.
Like,
And so the kid was sitting, and it was attached to the dock, and he's sitting in the boat. And Brody's like, what is he doing out there? Like, get him out of there. And she's like, oh, he's fine. He's not going in the water. He's just sitting there on the boat. And then, like, she turns and looks at the book and that Brody's reading, and it has, like, a shark eating a guy. And she's like, uh-oh. And she, like, finally calls and yells for him. She's terrible.
and then 4th of July, it's like more people died, and she's just like, oh, they're just having fun.
Let him hang out in the
play."
lagoon.
I'm like, no.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So she's pretty bad. Is there anything she does right in this movie?
Well, I wrote that maybe the only thing that she did right was, like, actually seeing a shark eating somebody in a book and then being like, okay, I have to get my kid out of there. It's not right because she should have already done it, but she got there eventually.
Do you know what she did right? She must have done something right to be living in a nice beachfront property on Martha's Vineyard.
Yeah.
Am I right?
Marion Brody, good guy.
Love that for you. Too bad you have no common sense.
0.
Okay, well, one thing that does happen is like her son, like you mentioned in the summary, he has a near shark attack where the guy next to him gets his leg bitten off, and
Yes.
it's not good. But he's just like ubba dubba dubba dubba,
Yeah.
and then
Humana.
he has to go to the hospital.
Yeah.
And then the mom is like, "Oh my God, what ice cream do you want?" And he goes, "Coffee."
Yeah. And she's
So-
like, coffee, okay.
If you survived a near shark attack, what kind of ice cream would you want?
All right, well, I would obviously go straight to Princeton, which is where I go for my ice cream.
Okay.
I would go to Thomas Sweet. Shout out Thomas Sweet.
Okay.
I would grab my scoop of mint chocolate chip mixed with a scoop of chocolate chip cookie dough ice cream,
oh
and
my,
I would
that's a
have
little intense.
and I would have it blended with brownies and Kit Kats.
Okay.
That's what I would do. I mean,
Help you feel something again.
yeah,
right?
it will bring me back to my body. Or sometimes I'll do like a Nutella flavor,
Yeah, that's good.
something like that.
Nice.
Those I probably wouldn't do together. They would probably be like one of those would be, and then I would have like a base flavor that's a little bit less crazy.
Yeah.
Not that those are crazy individually, but I would do that. But then I would do like maybe just like a vanilla or something like that, where it sort of blends all together a little bit better. But yeah, I would have to curate it. That's what I would think about while I was in the hospital bed. Yeah.
That's good.
What would you do?
I would do a flavor I absolutely despised, because then
So that you wouldn't associate it with that time?
oh, that's a good idea. No, I would do it to remind myself that there's good and bad in everything.
What would be why would you have to remind yourself that there's bad in everything? You almost got attacked by a shark.
Well, the bad thing is that the ice cream stinks.
The bad thing isn't that you almost got killed by a shark.
It kind of lessens that, doesn't it, though?
Oh, you're going by you think that okay. So you think that eating bad ice cream is worse or will lessen the blow of almost being attacked by a shark?
Yeah, because you're just like, wow, I like can't believe that ice cream was so bad. Like,
Can you give me an example of a horrible flavor?
yeah, I can.
Like roast beef?
Ew, I didn't even think about
Roast beef
that.
ice cream?
Okay, we once had from a very good,
yeah. I know exactly what you're
from
going
a
to say.
very good ice cream shop that we love a lot.
Not Thomas Sweet.
A pink rose flavor, and it literally tasted like a 67-year-old aunt's potpourri in her powder room.
It was maybe the only bad ice cream I've ever had.
I was just like, and it was so creamy and like, oh, this is gonna be so good. And then I'm like,
Yeah.
bar of soap.
It was startling.
It was startling. So I would eat that.
Okay.
It would remind me of the good times.
Yep. Let the good times roll.
That's right. So this movie stars really these 3 dudes, right?
The big 3.
Who's your favorite of these 3 fellas?
Who do you think my favorite is?
I think your favorite is Brody.
Brody's my favorite.
Yeah.
I thought this would make you think for a little bit because you would maybe think it's Hooper.
No. I don't think
Okay.
it's super. I think he's a little too like nudgy, and then I think the other one's too curmudgeonly.
I found Brody to be the one character of the three that's not a caricature at all.
Yeah.
I think that the other two are good. Like, I think they're great, but Brody I found to be
More realistic.
a reluctant leader caught between a rock and a hard place. He's a good guy, but he's flawed. He makes the wrong choice often.
Mm-hmm.
But in the end, he's the guy that you want to get stuff done.
Yeah.
And I think he's the guy in the movie that's the role model. He's the least stubborn of the three.
Yeah.
He's also the guy who grows the most. Quint has no growth whatsoever.
In fact, he gets lessened a lot.
Yeah, he gets smaller by the end of the movie. Hooper, you don't really get to see the growth because he's still. I think there's room for it after this traumatic experience, but you don't get to see it. But I think that you see Brody sort of become. He goes from a part earlier in the movie where he's a little bit more afraid to put his foot down, and he's like kind of shrinking from the mayor.
He's trying
and all
to
that.
find his role here, yeah.
And by the end, he's the guy who's like, all right, I'm going to throw this freaking pressurized scuba tank into the shark's mouth and I'm going to shoot it with a rifle.
And now I get to do what I want.
Yeah. It's not what Hooper suggested. It's not what Quint suggested. Brody's the guy who ends up saving the day because he's the most resourceful and he's the most adaptable.
Love that.
Brody's my guy.
Brody's my favorite too. He just has that kind of swag about him. I'm like, I'd marry Brody.
I thought that he was like the true main character, and he is. He's the protagonist. But the second half of the movie, it's much more about Hooper and Quint than it is about him.
Yeah.
Like the first half is and once they hit the ocean, it's really about those two. But everything before that is about Brody. But the one thing that I loved about the script in this movie is that every line either advanced the plot or said something about Brody.
Yeah.
And Roy Scheider was so good at, like, even when it's the other two talking, you're still looking at his facial expressions and the way that he's reacting to what they're saying.
Because you want to know, like, what's he going to do?
Yeah.
And how are you going to help us save the town?
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
I also like his swag. The glasses. Right? Did he have glasses?
He did have glasses.
I thought so. Okay, Amity itself, right? Amity Island. Amity means friendship. They keep saying that in the movie.
Yeah.
That's funny. It feels like a character of its own, right? Like, I love movies like that and TV shows where the setting feels
Contributes.
Yeah. What are some other movies that seem to have the setting as a character?
All right. Well, I thought of a bunch, but I have one that is overall the best.
Okay.
I'm going to save that one for last.
Okay.
So I think of like some really close, intimate romance movies like Casablanca and In the Mood for Love.
Uh-huh.
I think both of those rely a lot on mood. And I find that movies that rely on mood a lot, the setting is a big part of that. For example, a lot of the LA movies like Chinatown, Nightcrawler, Drive, Collateral, like all of those movies, there's a certain, you can picture all of those movies in your head right now because of how good the setting is.
Mm-hmm.
Even New York movies, I wrote
New York, yeah.
Dog Day Afternoon,
Yep.
Do the Right Thing,
Yeah.
Bringing Out the Dead, which you haven't seen, right? It's a Scorsese, Nicolas Cage movie where he's like an ambulance driver, and it's like right in 2000. It's like right before 9/11, which we just talked about last week. How we always mention 9/11 on the podcast.
Yep.
But and again, just like everything about it is so like unique and distinct. Then I also thought about some claustrophobic horror movies like Alien and The Thing, where everything just feels so tight and there's something lurking around every corner. So like you're paying more attention to the setting. And but my number one, which sort of ties in with that one, is The Shining.
Good.
The Overlook Hotel literally is like everybody knows what the Overlook Hotel is.
Yep.
You know the hallways, you know the ballroom, you know the axe in the door, like you know the setting. The movie's not the same without the setting.
So true.
It literally could not exist in the form that it exists without the Overlook Hotel being the Overlook Hotel, and that's my number one answer.
Good job. I have one more movie to add to that, which is Vertigo.
I wrote Vertigo too, but I had already
San Francisco.
I had already talked about too many movies.
Yeah. San Francisco is like, oh wow, this is San Francisco, and it's like it couldn't have been said anywhere else.
Yeah, it's airy. and it's like it's like crisp
Yeah,
almost.
it's good stuff.
Yeah.
And then one more, Banshees of Inisherin.
Yes.
With Inisherin
Yeah.
and the Irish island. Whoa. And that's almost like its own little character because the town itself is so important. The small town atmosphere, which
So
I feel like is something Martin McDonagh like definitely focuses on. I just don't think it was done as well in Three
and
Billboards.
in Bruges, apparently, it's not a small town, but apparently, like the whole city, it's like captures the city.
Yep. So I think that one too.
I parlay that into my question, which was,
Yeah, I only have 2 more questions.
well, mine was, do you have a favorite small town movie? Since we're talking about,
I
small
tried to
towns.
think about it. So
I got a couple.
the ones I thought about was Haddonfield in
Halloween,
and it's not just because
Haddonfield, New Jersey.
Haddonfield, New Jersey, where it's based on, is near us. So that one, and then Scream, the town in Scream, definitely. And then the town in Back to the Future.
Okay, yeah, Back to the Future was on a lot of the lists that I looked at.
Yeah.
I have Stand By Me.
Oh yeah, that's good.
Fargo.
Oh yeah.
Which fits with the other one.
Don't you know?
Fits with the other question too. It's a Wonderful Life.
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah. Memories of Murder.
Oh yeah. Oh my god, I loved that movie.
Hot Fuzz.
Oh yeah, that's a really good one.
And Twilight.
Oh yeah, Forks. Forks Washington.
Washington.
How did we get here? Climb on Spider Monkey,
Yeah.
right? What is that?
All of those I think have a
Stop lying. You did not see Twilight.
Huh?
You did not see
I've seen Twilight.
We gotta do Twilight for the podcast.
We should do Twilight.
August.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll figure it out.
That's really funny. Okay, I have two more questions. What are your favorite and least favorite water movies? And you can take that however you want.
Okay. Well, I just went with water movies that are like on the sea.
Okay.
This is obviously a favorite.
I haven't seen many. I've looked at all the list of water movies. I'm like, I haven't seen any of these.
I saw a bunch. Two of mine here are Tom Hanks movies.
Oh, Castaway.
Captain Phillips and Castaway.
I am the captain now.
Wilson. Life of Pi.
I did put Life of Pi.
I love Life of Pi. I love the book. I love both.
Hated the book in 8th grade,
Yeah.
but I watched the movie a couple years ago and I was like, no, it was actually really good.
Yeah, the movie's great. And this is not a water movie, but I think of the water in Spirited Away a lot.
Oh, that's interesting.
Because it surrounds the whole area, and there's the part where they're just eating bao and looking out at the freaking just looking out.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
At the water.
I like that.
As for my least favorites, I don't know if I've watched enough to have least favorites, but I just wrote, I'm gonna guess Titanic 2 and Jaws: The Revenge because the shark chases them to the Bahamas.
Yeah, that's pretty bad. Okay, so I have a couple more. I did put Life of Pi. I also, as a fave, that was really good. I also really liked Pirates of the Caribbean, the first one.
I didn't write that one.
Curse of the Black Pearl. Titanic is a wonderful movie.
I have seen Titanic. I've seen all of it, but I've never sat down and watched all the way through.
Yeah, it's so good. Finding Nemo.
Yeah, I didn't even think of.
Yeah,
I did think of Luca, which I liked.
Oh, Luca, yeah, that's a good one. And Little Mermaid. And then for bad, I put Avatar. Is Avatar underwater?
Maybe The Way of Water.
Is that an ocean movie?
Maybe The Way of Water.
Oh yeah, I don't think it's underwater.
We didn't watch that one.
And then for bad, I put. When I was in high school, I went to see this movie called Into the Blue.
I know the movie, but I haven't seen it.
And it's just Jessica Alba in a bikini and Paul Walker in.
So this is bad or good?
It's bad. It was really bad. And I was watching something I wasted $8.50 on this. Meanwhile, we're going to see Barbie and it's going to cost us $40.
Yeah, $18 a person.
Why? So
it's Barbie.
We're
in a Barbie world.
We have a Fandango gift card.
Yeah, it's free. It doesn't matter.
So those are mine. Into the Blue was really bad, you guys.
We should do Into the Blue for the podcast.
No, we don't need to do that. All right. So my final thing. This is a Spielberg movie. It's his second movie. And when I was watching it, I was just like, oh, shoot. I feel like I've come to the conclusion, the past couple years when I've watched, when we did when we watched The Post, and then we watched West Side Story, and then we watched The Fabelmans.
Yeah.
Every time, don't I turn to you and go, oh, shoot, I actually, this is a vibe. Spielberg's so good.
He knows how to make a movie.
He makes movie magic, and that's it. He makes movies.
I find Spielberg to be a good director of blockbuster movies that doesn't he doesn't make me really think at all, which is fine, but it's just not, he doesn't hit me in a way where I'm like, he's my favorite director, because I enjoy his movies, but he doesn't put me into that extra gear.
What are your favorite Spielberg movies, do you think?
I'll give you
if
my
you
top,
had maybe a top 3.
I'll give you my top 3. So it's either been a long time where I haven't actually seen some of them all the way through, like E.T. and like the Indiana Jones movies, so I'm not counting those. But my top 3, this is my number 1.
Minority Report. Oh, Jaws is?
Jaws is my number 1.
Yeah, I love Jaws.
My number 2 is Schindler's List.
Oh, so good.
And my number 3 is Minority Report, which
Yeah.
is probably a weird choice. Some people might be like, ew, he has like Jurassic Park. He has like all these other like amazing, Saving Private Ryan. I really liked Minority Report, man.
So good.
That movie is great.
Well,
And-
I think that Spielberg is kind of not always seen as a sci-fi director, and he is.
Well, I'll tell you what. I used to have the uninformed opinion that he was overrated.
Wow.
But
Because you were a contrarian.
kind of, I mean, yeah, sort of. But like, I didn't appreciate what he was doing in the 2000s because I think it's seen as like his lesser era. But to me, the Minority Report, Catch Me If You Can, even AI, which I haven't seen, like those types of movies are different from what you would expect from him.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't really appreciate that he was taking risks. It's not that he's doing the most bankable thing possible all the time.
Right.
And so, because I'm thinking War Horse, Lincoln, Bridge of Spies, which aren't bad movies by any stretch, but like that's what I was thinking when I thought of late
They're not
era.
setting the world on fire.
That's
right?
what I was thinking when I was thinking of later era Spielberg. But he really was still trying to push boundaries in a lot of ways out in like his early 2000s period. And Minority Report really hit me, even though we watched it on an iPad in like Wyoming or wherever we were.
Yeah. It was so good. I loved it.
Yeah, those are my top 3.
That's good. I do wish I...
That being said, though, sorry, I do want to obviously hit all his big ones that I haven't seen yet.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Like, there's some that I definitely want to see. Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
Absolutely. That's the next one I want to watch.
And then
At least Raiders.
I really want to, yeah. I mean, I've seen some of the Indiana Jones ones, but like, and then I really want to see.
The only one I saw was Crystal Skull
that's
in
okay.
full.
I really want to see The Color Purple.
Yeah. Oh, you know what else I liked when I was a kid? I don't know if it's actually good. Hook.
People love Hook,
which we
I've
talked
never
about last
seen
week
it.
with, or a couple weeks ago, Robin Williams.
Yeah. So I don't know. There's like, so I want to really dive into his filmography a little bit more.
I'd be interested. I'd like to watch Sugarland Express too, just to sort of see
His
what
OG.
his first like feature looked
I
like.
would also like to give E.T. a second shot. I watched
sure.
it like when I was older, and I was
Same.
like, "This is bad."
Same.
But I feel like it's not bad.
Then there's also like Amistad, Munich, War of the Worlds.
Oh, I do want to see. I've seen Amistad and I liked it. I saw War of the Worlds and I liked it, and I want to see Munich.
Yeah, so I would be down to go through most of these.
Munich is supposed to be really good.
Yeah,
And that's in the 2000s, right?
2005.
So there you go.
It's long.
Ugh, so is everything at this point.
But yeah, so those are my top 3.
Good job.
What is yours?
I don't know. Probably Jaws is probably my favorite. Honestly, I think it's a perfect movie. I love Jaws. Like, I love that movie.
It's clean.
That's what I like, and I love movies that it's like simple, clean. This is my movie. This is what it's about. You're gonna get it.
Yeah.
Enjoy. Bye, and we're out. 2 hours 4 minutes.
Yeah.
There's no fluff. I don't need to know the politics of this. I don't need to know the this of that.
Well, I don't think.
Tell me the movie, and it's there, and it's perfect.
Well, at the same time, I don't think that those are Spielberg's strengths anyway.
Right.
Like if I was watching a Martin Scorsese movie, maybe it would be different because he has different strengths than Spielberg does. So I would maybe want some more depth out of a Scorsese movie. But when it comes to Spielberg, hit me with the John Williams score.
Mhm.
Hit me with the action. Hit me with the tension.
And he's got some beautiful shots.
And let's go home, baby.
He always knows how to really set a scene.
Yeah.
I just really, you almost feel, I feel like in a lot of Spielberg movies, you feel like you have been there before.
Well, and this movie
feels almost like a memory.
This movie uses claustrophobia very well because it's such an open area. But in the first half of the movie, there's so much chaos happening on the beach that like the shots that he uses, it's like it'll be Brody, but crossing in front of Brody are just people running back and forth like across each other and screaming and everything. So it's like you're locked in this like just total chaos, everyone around you, and you have to be the voice of reason. And then in the second half, it's the wide open sea. There's nothing. and they're on this tiny little boat. Like, he uses that feeling so well in this movie, and he does other stuff well in other movies, that he's a very adaptable director.
And then, rawr.
Yeah. So it's like he's just really good at using techniques to make the viewer like feel something.
Good stuff.
Yeah. That's all you got, right?
That's it.
All right. What do I have?
Party.
Who are your favorite sharks?
Sharknado shark.
I wrote the street sharks. Do you remember the street sharks?
Like when you're a shark.
No, they were like, well, yeah, them too. But the street sharks was like that cartoon.
Don't know that.
It was like the sharks were like cool, and they were like the bad guys.
Maybe Bruce from Finding Nemo.
Yeah.
And then
Bruce was what they called the shark in Jaws.
That's
during production.
That's funny. What about Baby Shark?
Baby shark.
Baby Shark, do 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 do. And then you're like, Grandpa Shark.
I wrote the guy from the World Series of Poker with the reptile glasses because he was a card shark.
All right, that's dumb.
I also wrote Mark Cuban.
Enough. Not even Mr. Wonderful.
No, Mr. Wonderful would be in my bottom list of
Bottom
sharks.
sharks.
That guy's a real piece of work.
He is a piece of work.
I'm not a big fan. Unless he wants to sponsor, if he wants a piece of the podcast, because we don't have any revenue. Yeah, Mr. Wonderful, call us up. I'll take the deal. Do you have a favorite like actual shark? Because they're like cool looking.
Like Bob the shark. Like
no,
I don't know any
like
sharks.
Hammerheads. Hammerheads are my favorite.
Oh,
No.
no.
They're such a cool like. Nothing else in the world looks like a hammerhead shark.
Something that I liked was in the movie they said that tiger sharks will just eat anything.
That is true. Yes,
I like that.
That's like a well-known thing. That's great.
I thought that was cool.
Yeah.
What other sharks are there? Great whites.
There's a lot. There's mako sharks. There's thresher sharks they talked about in the movie. There's like so many sharks.
Okay.
We should watch Shark Week. Happy Shark Week. That's
Shark
our
Week.
little sign we have up here. Okay. Give me your top 3 John Williams scores. He's got so many.
Number 3, Jaws, just because it's iconic.
Yeah.
Would I listen to it? Imagine I'm just
no,
like,
I don't mean that. I mean, I guess for me, the way I interpreted my own question was like, what scores bring up like
nostalgia or feelings or this or that? I understand.
that you associate with a movie.
3, Jaws.
Yeah.
2, it's got to be Star Wars.
Yeah.
And I don't like Star Wars. And it's Star Wars. It's not that I don't like Star Wars. It's just space, sand.
Yeah.
Number 1, Harry Potter.
Yeah. I have the same top 3, but in a different order.
All right.
I have Jaws at number 3, Harry Potter at number 2, Star Wars at number 1.
E.T. is also really good, too.
I mean, I wrote, he also has like Indiana Jones, which is memorable.
Yeah.
Jurassic Park is one of the best.
Yeah. Apparently did some Monday Night Football stuff, too.
Oh, did he?
I think so.
Yeah, so like any of the Spielberg, he did so much of the Spielberg stuff alone that you can think of off the top of your head.
Yeah.
But for me, it's Star Wars, the main title theme, and the Imperial March are like 2 of the most iconic pieces of film music of all time.
Yeah.
I think the Imperial March might be the best piece of film music of all time.
Is that the dun 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 dun?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nothing like encapsulates. April's like snoring. Nothing encapsulates
like, oh, that's a bad guy coming.
The bad guy, or like you don't want to mess with the Empire than that music, while also showing that they're like orderly. And it's very like the fact that it's a march is so.
Okay, but is there anything better than Jaws just being like a guy with a tuba?
Well, the thing that well, that's funny. It's like how Halloween's like the greatest of all time.
Yeah.
And it's just a guy with hitting like 2 notes. It's John Carpenter hitting 2 notes. But my thing with the Jaws score, which I found myself a little surprised to be like, I don't know how good this is overall. Like So I felt Jaws to be more like not a horror movie per se, but I found it weird when they were like chasing it on the sea and it was like your Indiana Jones type adventure score.
Sure.
I found that a little strange and off-putting because it doesn't really seem to fit the tone of the movie. But I love the suspense score.
The dana dana. It's so good too because it's so sparse, and it turns out that that's how the shark is seen.
Yeah.
Not often, right? So it's I think that's excellent.
And also it's the restraint on the score too, because
because you'd be like, it's a shark, he's coming out.
Could you imagine? It's like Michael Bolton singing the score.
It's a shark. Watch out for the shark.
Maybe that's what like Jaws 3 was like. But no, I just mean even using it, like the whole ending sequence when Brody's like about to kill the shark. There's nothing. There's no
like,
music. It's just you hear the bumping of the boat. You hear like the screeching, like the squeaking of everything as it's like coming apart, and you just hear the water hitting everything, and that's it. And there's no score.
And you're just like,
Yeah,
it's good stuff.
yeah. Creative choices like that are so like.
That's why they make the big bucks.
Yeah. Can you name me one character in the history of movies that's a better dresser than the mayor?
Yeah,
The mayor's wearing like suits with an anchor all over it, like little anchors. And
yeah.
You look up the mayor from Jaws' outfits in this movie because they are insane.
Yeah, he's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, Big Lebowski.
Okay, yeah, with like the robe.
Yeah.
And his t-shirt.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's my choice.
Okay, I don't have a choice. I think that's the mayor number one for me.
There you go.
What memorable like beach memories do you have?
Let's see. I mean, honestly, I like the beach. I like the idea of the beach. I like the idea of going to a beach house.
I'm not a big beach person either.
But I'm not like, oh, it's really hot today. You know what we should do? Burn the bottoms of our feet with these hundreds of thousands of little tiny sand granules that are going to get stuck everywhere.
Yeah.
And then if you really want to, you can go ahead and get burnt so bad that you need aloe to feel okay. Oh, and then, or you can like put on some really greasy sunscreen all over your body, and it just won't feel right, and your fingertips will have like the remnants of that for a long time. Oh, but that's not okay. Don't worry, you can run into freezing cold ocean salt water that if it goes up your nose, you'll feel like you have like had a major incident where your throat is sore, and then you might die.
Yeah, and everything in there is faster than you, and can like kill you.
And it's like, oh, cool. And yeah, your water,
and
it's hot now.
And you can't see any of it.
Oh, you want your sandwich? Now it's extra crunchy.
Yeah.
Because you have all these sands in it. Oh,
so
great.
Good beach memories.
So that's, okay. And also my other beach memory I actually had was the time when I went on a tube out in the ocean and I almost drowned and I like slammed my head against the bottom of the but I do like the beach.
Yeah, the concept.
I also don't love wearing a bathing suit if I can help it.
Okay.
And who wants to be at a beach where you have like a towel wrapped around you, you're in a dress all day?
Yeah.
And I'm like, anytime that I went to the beach, I'd have like a book and a beach hat covering me under an umbrella with the towel over my leg. I'm like a ton of fun.
But then it's like, why wouldn't you just sit by your pool?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I have a pool.
Yeah.
I don't have a pool.
Well, we don't, but
we have access to a pool.
Yeah.
And the thought of doing all that while chasing a toddler around,
baby,
could you imagine?
That's
my fun beach memory.
So
love it. Oh my God, it's summer.
My fun beach memory was, I thought you were going to have one.
I have lots of good beach memories.
Because then I was going to come in and say, my favorite beach memory was the time that I decided I'm never going in the ocean again, which was, I was been like basically afraid of the ocean most of my life. And then I went to South Carolina with some friends and I was like, all right, everyone's going to hang out in the water. I'll do it. It's fine. And I was having a lot of fun. Boom, stung by a jellyfish. Boom, stung by another jellyfish. And guess what? That was my sign. The water's not for me. I'm an inside cat. I mean, it just
we are inside cats for sure.
It just is what it is.
That being said, I love a beach town.
Oh yeah,
I love Asbury Park.
I like the atmosphere of it all and all that.
I love this ocean air. Yeah. I love the crashing of the waves.
When we went to San Francisco and we just hung out on the beach. Like,
I love
that's
that
fine.
stuff. Like that I'm in my bag. But I just like
for me it's the activities. I can't do the activities.
95 degrees. What am I doing here?
Yeah.
Like what are we doing here?
This is how you know you're old. I'm just gonna say that.
But like like I said, if I stayed at a beach house where I had like the master bed or the primary bedroom with the windows open and it's like, oh, floor to ceiling windows, and I look out and it's the oceans
Yeah.
and they're just beautiful. And then I see the sunset. And then I'm like, let's go for a walk on the beach before dinner. And it's like just like cooling down. Like, that's lovely.
We
Has
went to
that ever happened in my life? No.
We went to Cape May with April, and that was fun.
Yeah, that was nice. But that was also November.
Yeah. We did walk along the beach, though.
I went to a bachelorette party, Jackie's bachelorette in Cape May in the summer. That was
my
nice.
bachelor party was in Ocean City, Maryland.
Mine was in Asbury Park. So
Yeah.
I guess we do like the beach.
Yeah, but I didn't even go on the beach. I don't think. Maybe one day.
Yeah.
Even though we had backdoor access to the beach. We just
Eh.
hung out in the yard and like played like sports.
That's fun though.
Yeah. Maybe we did go to the beach one day. I don't remember.
Beach vibes, beach bums.
Yeah. Okay. My next question was, are you scared of water like me? But I think we've covered this enough.
I'm really not. But I'm also
I absolutely am.
but I respect water. Like,
that's why I'm scared of it.
I'm not scared. I have a reverence for it.
I'm scared of everything that's underwater. Period.
Oh, what about like
Crabs, they'll bite my they'll snap my legs.
what about seashell?
I'll step on it, it'll hurt my foot. I'll be like, ow.
Oh my.
That was a Tom Haverford
yeah,
moment.
I was about to say.
Okay. What did you think of how the shark looked?
Great.
I thought so too. I think
Excellent. Better than all these movies nowadays where it's like, we're CGI in it, baby.
you're gonna do these movies nowadays thing.
You know, these movies nowadays that I don't watch and have no examples of, they're just so annoying with the CGI sharks. No, I mean,
I do prefer when there are practical effects.
yeah.
And I think that Spielberg did a good job of camouflaging the shark.
I
in this
love
movie.
that.
And I think that the movie doesn't work as well if the shark is all up in your face all the time.
Right.
And I think that the moments it is, I think it works. Even today, I think it works.
I think it works.
I understand doing some of the like shark footage when he was in the cage and having that like from the underwater view be like a real shark, if you can make it work. But I mean, the stupid thing about the movie is not the way the shark looks; it's the fact that the shark keeps harassing these guys.
Yeah.
Which is fine. It is what it's a movie. But
yeah. Call him Dolly Parton because he's working 9 to 5.
exactly.
What a way to make a living.
Yeah, Jolene over here.
No, not Jolene. I'm begging you, please don't take my man.
No. That's all the Dolly Parton I have, so we're gonna cut that here. Okay. Let's see. My notes. That's all my questions, by the way. Did you have a favorite scene? Just off the top of your head? No,
Did I? No. Actually, I didn't.
my favorite scene, Ebert's favorite scene, you know what Ebert's favorite scene is.
When Quint gets eaten?
Quentin and Hooper and when they're trading
and
war stories.
when they're hanging out.
Yeah.
No, my favorite scene. This is like so embarrassing, Tom. Like,
Is it it's early in the movie.
it's early in the movie.
Yeah.
And it's just a short cut, and it's the main street, and everyone's excited about the the fact that July 4th is coming up, and someone's like hanging up a banner, and like
Yeah.
that's my favorite scene.
And it's after people have been killed.
They don't know that.
I know.
And then also Polly, justice for
Oh,
Polly.
Polly. I forgot about Polly.
She's just like the
She's
administrative assistant
Brody's like,
for
yeah.
Brody. And she's just like, oh, you know how they go. And it's like, oh, another call. I guess someone needs you again.
Yeah.
Like, she's one of those. And I'm like, yes, Polly.
She knows what she's doing. She's in control of the office. She gets it.
She really runs the place.
Yeah.
Those are my favorite scenes. Is that
Well, it's funny.
embarrassing?
It's funny. Yes, it is. It's funny because usually you would say that the type of guy where the admin assistant runs the place is kind of like a guy who sort of just got where he was by like trampling on other people. But Brody doesn't give me that vibe.
No.
But because he's new to the area from New York City, he needs somebody like Polly, and Polly's the perfect person for the
I
job.
just don't think, like, you obviously have not worked in a school
Yeah.
where I have had there's many competent people that are wonderful that work there. It doesn't matter if you have like the most amazing person who's the boss. The administrative assistants run the place.
Yes.
They just do. My grandma was a secretary for many, many, many years. She ran the place.
Yes.
And that's not a good or a bad thing to say about the everybody else that works there.
Yeah.
It's just a fact. And I love it like that. I need a 65-year-old woman who went to the beauty parlor on Saturday morning, so her hair is perfectly coiffed, to tell me to sign in.
Yes.
That it's imperative
and
that I
you can smell her from
in.
across the room.
You just know.
You can smell the perfume.
You're like, I'll do it.
Yes.
And that's how you know a place is run right.
Yes. Okay. Notes. I wrote this town meeting it's the town meeting after the second killing. And they're talking about whether
Alex Kintner.
When they're talking about whether to like close the beaches down.
Probably shoulda.
I wrote, this town meeting is so Parks and Rec because there's a dead teen and a dead kid, and they're laughing about the $10,000 bounty being in cash or check.
Embarrassing.
Yeah.
So rude.
All right, I wrote, the screenplay is so focused, and this is early on in the movie. Classic character work with Brody. He makes choice after choice under immense pressure, and then he has to deal with the reactions of others, for example, being slapped and blamed by Mrs. Vintner, and all of it shapes his future choices. Everything is related. All dialogue and all of the scenes says something about Brody or furthers Brody's journey by advancing the plot.
There's something about Brody.
Seriously. Camera work is great too. The scene where everyone's flailing out of the water on the fourth and they're like trampling each other and stuff.
That's very good camera work.
Brody is in hell the entire time on the ship. He can barely move, and every time he does, he either almost slips off the boat or gets stabbed by Quint's harpoon.
So relatable.
Like, he just turns around and there's like a harpoon in his face on accident. He's like, oh God. Like, falls backwards. And then I talked about claustrophobia and the restraint with the score. Yeah, I said it's classic Williams the entire movie, and then although it wasn't classic Williams at the time, it was just Williams. Then when Dreyfus goes down and Quint gets eaten and the shark storms the boat for the last time, it's complete silence except for water and metal clanging like tolling bells on the boat, which is just awesome.
Beautiful.
That was all the notes I had. So we'll go to
Tom's top 5 trivia,
which is actually Mark's top 5 trivia and one or two other things that I wrote.
Thank you, Mark.
Yeah. So last week I talked about how my friend Mark, who I'm sure will listen to this at some point, we asked him to come on, but he said he wanted.
He said, "I literally hate you."
Yes, he said, "I hate you guys. I never want to talk to you again." But anyway, here's Jaws is his favorite movie, so he sent me a ton of like little trivia things and stuff that he thought about. So a lot of it you said, which was,
oh my God, I'm so smart.
The bloating of the budget, the bloating of the timeline of the movie. Spielberg completely underestimated how hard it would be to film at sea between the weather, the salt water destroying everything, and the mechanical shark constantly failing. It was nicknamed Flaws. Spielberg was convinced he was never to be hired again. But the mechanical shark failures ultimately were a huge blessing because Spielberg had to adapt and use the camera to suggest the shark's presence, which made the film much better and scarier. It made the unseen shark much more terrifying than he called it unrealistic mechanical shark you see much later.
There you go.
He said, great whites get very close to the size of the movie one. The largest one ever verified is over 20 feet long, and there have been more anecdotal reports of 20 to 25 feet, and the movie shark in this one is 25 feet.
Of course, it's got to be, right?
Yeah.
The smaller the fish, the bigger the lie, right? Isn't that a fisherman saying?
There's a scene where they accidentally captured real shooting stars. It's when they're doing a shot of the orca. It's after when he gives the speech about the USS Indianapolis, and they accidentally, like, you just see shooting stars in the sky for a second, which is pretty cool. In the scene where the dead guy's head pops out of the wrecked boat, that was added after the movie had been screened, and Spielberg felt it needed one more scare, so he paid out of his own pocket to film it. And
$3,000.
And it was done in the swimming pool of the film's editor, Verna Fields.
There you go.
Yeah. When the shark is attacking Hooper in the cage, a lot of that is real footage of a shark that was filmed by legendary underwater filmmakers named Ron and Valerie Taylor, along with a shark expert named Rodney Fox, specifically for the movie. While they were filming the real-life shark, it accidentally got stuck on the top of the cage and freaked out and broke the cage. And that's the take they used in the movie.
Well, wasn't what's his name supposed to die?
Hooper.
The character, yeah.
Originally, yeah, but they worked this into the script, and I looked at the script. If you type in any movie in script, you can pretty much find it. And it's true. The script says, through frantic bubbles, Hooper fumbles with the overhead hatch cover, kicking up and out of the cage. But in the movie, he goes through the bars that are open. Mm-hmm. So I believe that totally. And then those are Mark's, and those are all great. The two that I found separately were several decades after the film's release, Lee Fierro, who played Mrs. I said Vintner. It's Kintner, who played Mrs. Kintner, walked into a seafood restaurant and noticed that the menu had an Alex Kintner sandwich.
Oh my God.
She commented that she had played his mother so many years ago. The owner of the restaurant ran out to meet her, and he was none other than Jeffrey Voorhees, who had played her son in the movie. And
Are you joking?
And they hadn't seen each other since the original movie shoot.
Are you kidding?
That's amazing.
I'm obsessed.
And final trivia: how much screen time do you think the shark had?
Okay, let's guess. 6 minutes and 5 seconds.
4 minutes. 4 minutes of screen time.
Amazing.
It's 2 hours and then 4 minutes.
The Beetlejuice effect.
Exactly. Casting: Brody. Spielberg considered Charlton Heston, but he thought that casting him would imply that a shark would have no chance against a larger-than-life hero.
Yeah, right.
He wanted somebody that was a little bit more down to earth.
Yeah.
He offered it to Robert Duvall because Duvall was a big person who told Spielberg he needed to make this movie. But he turned it down, fearing it. He said it might make me too famous.
Oh my God.
Duvall wanted to play Quint, but Spielberg told him he was too young. Gene Hackman was also considered for Brody. Hooper, Kevin Kline was offered the role, and Dustin Hoffman said he was offered a part which was presumably Hooper.
I mean, that's who I would assume, yeah.
Jeff Bridges and John Voight were also considered. And Quint, the only guy I saw that turned it down, I mean, obviously besides the Duvall thing, was Oliver Reed, who was Proximo in Gladiator, who was like your favorite guy in Gladiator.
Oh my God, I loved him.
Guy. He turned it down. He would have been great too. Peter Benchley, his casting, he wanted Robert Redford, Paul Newman, and Steve McQueen.
Heck yeah, buddy.
Me too, my guy.
Who wouldn't?
Me too.
Who wouldn't?
Me too.
1974,
that is insane. I would have been like, beat it, freaking give us your book and get out of here. Yeah. The budget would have been triple what it was.
The movie wouldn't have been. It would have just been like these three guys all at the same time.
Yes.
Throwing the exploding thing into the shark's
mouth.
The end.
With the one-liner beforehand.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. All right. So Roger Ebert review. What do you think he gave it?
4.
4 stars out of 4, of course. He agrees with the sort of idea about keeping the shark away. He says, in keeping the great white off screen, Spielberg was employing a strategy used by Alfred Hitchcock throughout his career. A bomb is under the table and it explodes. That is surprise, says Hitchcock. The bomb is under the table, but it does not explode. That is suspense. Spielberg leaves the shark under the table for most of the movie, and many of its manifestations in the later part of the film are at second hand. We don't see the shark, but the results of his actions. The payoff is one of the most effective thrillers ever made. Later on, he says, the best scene in the movie is the nighttime scene in the galley where the men drink apricot brandy and Quint and Hooper compare scars. Finally, Quint launches into a moody monologue telling the World War II story of the sinking of the USS Indianapolis. He was one of its crew members. Of the 1,100 men who went overboard, he says, sharks ate all but 316 before rescue arrived. They averaged 6 an hour, he says. Then he says, Spielberg's first big hit contained elements he repeated in many of his movies. A night sea hunt for the shark provides an early example of his favorite visual hallmark, a beam of light made visible by fog. He would continue to devote close attention to characters instead of hurrying past them to the special effects, as so many 1990s FX directors did. In Jaws and subsequently, he prefers mood to emotional bludgeoning, and one of the remarkable things about the picture is its relatively muted tone. The familiar musical theme by John Williams is not a shrieker, but low and insinuating. It's often heard during point-of-view shots at water level and below, which are another way that Spielberg suggests the shark without showing it. The cinematography by Bill Butler is at pains to tell the story in the midst of middle-class America. If Spielberg's favorite location would become the suburbs, Jaws shows suburbanites on vacation. And for Spielberg, the movie was the launching pad for the most extraordinary directorial career in modern movie history. Before Jaws, he was known as the gifted young director of films such as Duel and The Sugarland Express. After Jaws, Close Encounters of the Third Kind, and Raiders of the Lost Ark, he was the king.
Nice. Love you, Raj.
I don't know when he wrote that. Obviously, way later, but later than the 90s because he references the 90s.
Mm-hmm.
I think that might be all I've got. Let me just double check. Oh, the taglines. There's a million taglines for this movie because there's a million re-releases and all that type of stuff. I wrote down 4.
Is it like, he's going to eat you?
On the 4th of July, fishing season will open on you.
Good stuff. I love stuff like that.
She was the first. Who will be next?
Oh, my God.
You'll never go in the water again.
That's one I know.
And finally, Amity Island had everything. Clear skies, gentle surf, warm water. People flocked there every summer. It was the perfect feeding ground. I don't know where that fits on a movie poster, but that was one of the taglines. Yeah, I think that's all I've got for Jaws. Trivia's done. Yes. Okay, so does Jaws make Baby's first watch list?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. When?
No.
Well, now he wouldn't even know what he was watching.
He'd be like, oh.
Oh.
Ooh.
He does that now. All he does, everything is, oh, and he like points. He's like,
Oh.
Any takeaways?
Yes. Friendship can be found in the most unsuspecting places.
Fish are friends, not food.
That's why we call it amity.
Yeah. I said, I'm not going to restrict him, but I said, honestly, just stay out of the ocean. It's not worth it. It's just not worth it. I'm sorry if we have any marine biologists who are listening to this, but
very popular
podcast
profession.
Yeah. If you are a marine biologist, get in touch with me and tell me why you shouldn't stay out of the ocean.
Cool.
Yeah. So that's that. That's Jaws.
It's Jaws.
That's
a
Jaws.
good one.
Next week's our big double feature.
It's a double feature.
It is. We're going this Saturday to see Oppenheimer and Barbie because we got babysitting. We got to get in on it, and we got a babysitter. So shout out Aaron's parents.
Always, man.
Yeah, so we're going to do that. We're probably going to do it a little bit differently in that we're probably not going to say the plot summaries.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just because, I don't know, it would take up a lot of time and all that. We're going to try to make it a reasonably length episode too, trying not to make it a super long one. But we'll see how it goes covering 2 movies at once, which we have never done before.
Let alone 2 new movies.
Yeah, this is our first time doing a brand new movie.
Because we probably won't have like a ton of like background and stuff.
Yeah, like trivia is not really going to be a thing. So we're going to have to we're going to have to be a little creative next week.
We got this.
Yeah, so go see Oppenheimer and Barbie. And then Tuesday we're going to talk about it.
Yeah.
So, rate, review, subscribe, follow, do all that stuff. We're on Threads now. We're also on TikTok and YouTube and all that. The YouTube page is like pretty well up now. We're doing shorts. We're doing our like a little bit longer clips.
Yeah,
So follow us wherever you're not following us if you want to. But yeah, so this was Jaws, and next week is Barbenheimer.
And shout out to our baby.
Just in general?
He's turning 1.
Oh, yeah. He'll be 1 when this comes out.
Yep.
Yeah.
Can you believe it?
Yeah, kind of.
I can't. I really can't. I'm so excited.
Yeah.
My little boy.
Yep. All right. Well, we will see you next week for Oppenheimer and Barbie.
Okay. Goodbye.